Another week, another time for me to play music that I've never played before.
That's right, and hopefully an opportunity for you to feel very uncomfortable.
Yes, I make Wayne feel uncomfortable a lot of the time. We play together. In fact, we played at Carolina Gomez's house the last time we played. So, who was a former student here at yes. But I'm happy here to have Wayne Fugate, who plays the mandolin, as you can see, and David Gandin on bass. So thank you guys for being here. We've, in the past weeks, we've learned about guitar, banjo. What else? Okay, the dobro, and yes, is that? Well, now we're learning about the mandolin here. What other instrument did somebody come in and play for us? Yes, Kim? The fiddle. The fiddle, right? So I thought today we could...
all the lesser instruments.
Yes, right. Yeah. We saved the best here, for last, right? So I know that you guys have some questions, so why don't we start with, anybody want to be brave and ask the first question here from our audience? Come on now. Oh, there you go.
Sure. For you, why did you pick the mandolin?
That's a really great question, and I'm not sure I have a good answer for you. I started out playing guitar when I was in grammar school and continued through high school and into college. And then, when I got out of college and moved back home, all the people that I used to play guitar with had kind of moved away, so there's nobody to play with. And so I was just kind of, trying to think of what to do with myself. And there was a new friend that I had made who played violin, but he already had a guitar player that he had connected with. So what was left? I guess the mandolin. And I had had exposure to it because in the town where I grew up, they had concerts in one of the parks there every summer, and a bluegrass band called Bottle Hill would come through and play, and so I got to be kind of friendly with the mandolin player in that band, and eventually wound up having him as my teacher for a whole lot of years. So that was really good. But I just kind of fell into it by accident, really because there was nobody to play guitar with, and the one guy that was interested in playing music with me already had a friend that played guitar, so that really just left one of the other instruments. I lucked into it because it's the best instrument on the planet, in spite of what he'll tell you.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great instrument. Let's ask David the same question. How did you come to play the bass?
Well, somewhat by accident as well. I played guitar before I played the bass. I didn't start playing the bass until I was 30 years old. And I was just at a friend's house in Virginia visiting, and musician friends, and I just said, I'm thinking about getting a bass. And she said, my friend sells basses. And a woman named Anna Beal, and next thing you know, she had a bass over there that she was looking to sell, like this bass, the only bass I've ever owned. So I just bought it, I figured out how to fit it in my car, and drove back to New York and started messing around with it in my apartment, and just stuck with it.
Great. Yes, Erica?
Do you find that it's easier to start on like an instrument like the guitar, then go to the mandolin, or just start off with the mandolin?
I don't know that it's necessarily easier. I think in the beginning, no matter what instrument you pick, any of the ones that you've had exposure to over the last couple of weeks, or is it weeks or months? So any of them, are going to require you to learn, some fundamental technique. If you're playing an instrument like this or the guitar, you're going to need to learn how to use a flat pick. If you're playing banjo or dobro, you're going to have to learn how to finger pick. That's all going to require a certain amount of effort on your part, and I don't really think that, any one instrument is going to be any more difficult because it's all brand new, right? Violin is a little bit of an exception, I think, because you don't have frets to guide your fingers. I've tried playing violin before, and my cat hated me because of all the screeching noises that I made with it. I never got any kind of music out of it, so I think that might be a little more challenging, but, regardless of the instrument you pick, I think if you have a good teacher who's patient with you and will help you to learn the type of music that you want to play, it'll all be good.
Should we play another song and then take some more questions?
Sure.
After that?
Yeah, let's reach into the pile and figure out what a good one might be.
Wayne was nice enough to bring me charts here today.
I didn't want him getting lost. I didn't want him getting lost. You know, Aaron plays gypsy jazz and jazz brilliantly, and so we play we played together on several occasions, and I don't play jazz all that convincingly, so I'm always really uncomfortable when I play with him. And so today I'm really enjoying it because he gets to be the uncomfortable guy.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So just do this one. Sure. This is a tune called Fisher's Hornpipe. Bluegrass is filled with these fiddle tunes that kind of have their roots in other countries, other cultures. This one has its roots in the British Isles, and so hope you like it. Here's how it goes.
Hey, thank you, yeah. So it's such a beautiful sounding instrument. I see, you know, can you talk a little bit about, you know, how it's strung and it's 8 strings, right?
It's 8 strings, each you know, in pairs of 4, right? And it's tuned exactly like a violin. So from the highest string to the lowest string, it's E, A, D, G, just like a violin. But you play it with a pick. I tease the fiddle players and tell them that it's the same instrument, it's just that my bow is a whole lot smaller, right? And you have frets that help to guide your left hand so that you don't, you know, make your cat hate you, you know, by making horrible screeching noises, as you might, as certainly I did when I tried to learn to play violin. You know, there are different members of the mandolin family. It's not just the mandolin. If you think about the mandolin as being kind of, you know, the equivalent of a violin, there are mandolas that are tuned and fingered the same way as violas, so they're kind of the fretted counterpart of the viola. There are mandocellos that, you know, are kind of almost guitar-sized and are tuned just like a cello. And in fact, back in the 20s, the Gibson Company, you know, makers of famous guitars today, used to make mando basses. There were these big, unwieldy-looking things, big, huge teardrop-looking things with 4 strings on them that looked like telephone wires, and you had to play it with a really thick felt pick. And that was the equivalent of, you know, today's modern upright bass. So there's a whole family, and then there are all kinds of, you know, variations on the theme. I brought some for show and tell. This is my electric mandolin, right? This allows me to get in touch with my inner rock star. But fear not, I put on the spandex in the privacy of my own home. So, but this is really cool. It's a lot of fun to play. And then this one that maybe we'll mess around with a little bit later is an octave mandolin. This traces its roots back to the days when the giant mandolins roamed the earth. It's tuned exactly the same as a mandolin would be, except an octave lower, right? So it's got more of a voice that's, you know, similar to a guitar, but cooler in some ways, I think, than a guitar.
And is the origin of the mandolin traced back to Europe, or, I mean?
Yeah, it started out as an instrument with kind of gut frets, you know, that were just tied around the neck, and you actually played it with a feather, the quill of a feather, and then it kind of evolved in Italy, I guess, you know, it went through its first big metamorphosis into more of a modern instrument, and everybody's familiar, I'm sure, with those kind of teardrop-shaped, big bowl-back kind of mandolins, right? That were made of, you know, curved pieces of wood all joined together to form a bowl. And they introduced metal frets and metal strings. And so that, you know, Italy is kind of where it went through its first major evolution. And then here in the good old US, back in the 20s, it went through its second kind of evolutionary phase when the Gibson Company decided, you know what, it's tuned like a violin. The left-hand fingerings are all the same as a violin. Why don't we kind of build it more like a violin? So they started carving the instrument and carving the back and, you know, putting F-holes in it instead of the round holes, you know, the F-holes being similar to a violin. And so this is the style, this is kind of the modern style of mandolin that, you know, most bluegrass players, you know, play these days.
So you said it's made like a violin, so is it the same like spruce and maple like a violin?
Exactly, yeah, most modern day mandolins are some type of maple on the sides and the back and the neck, and then some type of spruce on the top. And there are all kinds of variations. There's Adirondack spruce and Lieberman spruce, and they all have, you know, produce instruments that have slightly different tonal characteristics to them. So, you know, no two mandolins sound exactly alike.
And what about the bass? What is the wood generally used in the construction of a bass?
Well, the back, you know, I'll be the first one to tell you, I focus on playing it. I don't know that much about the history of it, and I can't give you a lesson that way. But modern basses, the back, I think, it's a laminate. And a laminate means it's not a solid piece of wood. It's wood glued together. Now, they have what they call carved basses, where the top will be a solid piece of wood, and those are very common. Most jazz players will use a carved top. It gives a different tone. Bluegrass and traditional music is music more of the people, the common folk, at least historically, and I think probably for expense reasons, most of the tops are a laminate. This is a plywood top. It's not a solid top bass, and like I said, it's the only bass I ever owned, but you know, that's what I can tell you about the wood.
Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, Adam?
I know in a violin, there's like two pieces of wood inside that like vibrate to make the sound louder. Is that the same thing in the bass and mandolin?
Well, the bass, the way all of the acoustic instruments work is you hit a string and the vibrations hit the back of the instrument and then they come back out. And so that's why on the mandolin the back is spruce. They want a harder back. The harder the wood on the back, well, the different wood on the back, as it hits those strings actually vibrate and come out, that'll give you a different tone. And a lot of the instruments, they want that maple as a hard wood. As far as in the bass, I know it's hard to get in the bass. I get dirt in there. I don't know how to get it out. You gotta get it back there. I shake it so you hear a little dirt. But there's a bar. A sound post is the big thing that connects the top to the back. And without it, there wouldn't be the right tension. This bridge comes off as it does on a mandolin and a violin. And so that post, this tension, it's right here. Somebody can hear it when you tap. I don't know if I can see it. It's right here on this instrument. So if I tap here, you can feel there's an actual post there. And the amount of tension you have on the top will greatly affect the tone. I don't know if there's any other pieces of wood going across
Yeah,
this.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, that's the one I have. I can't speak to the mandolin.
Yeah, in a mandolin and in violins, and I think even in your bass, if you stuck a mirror in there and looked inside the top, there are two pieces of wood, as you said correctly, that are called tone bars, and they're usually very light wood and carved very precisely. And the purpose of those tone bars is to help you know, kind of spread the vibrations around that the strings produce and that the bridge transmits to the top. you know, those tone bars are designed to kind of spread that vibration around evenly so that it's ricocheting evenly and you get a nice pleasing tone, right? So guys that build these instruments, build violins, you know, really go to all kinds of painstaking measures to make sure that those tone bars are carved properly and they're just the right thickness and just the right material. They really do have an influence, even in their placement. If some builders put them on the top kind of parallel, some builders crisscross them, and both approaches produce really different results, you know, in the way the mandolin or the violin sounds. So.
Well, I know they would love to hear some more music, so why don't we...
Well, let's drag out the big boy and play through this one.
Okay.
Just to give them an idea of what that sounds like. Okay? I'll just do this like a trip through because it's kind of slow.
Sure.
All right? Now, this disclaimer time. I know this is supposed to be a strictly bluegrass program, but I'm kind of stretching the envelope a little bit. This is a decidedly Irish tune called Shebeg Shemore, and I understand from an Irish-speaking, Celtic-speaking friend of mine that that means big hill, little hill. So this is a lovely waltz from the Emerald Isle that sounds like this.
Play that octave mandolin often, or is that, you know, special instances?
Not when I'm playing bluegrass.
Right.
When I'm playing bluegrass, it's pretty much, you know, straight ahead mandolin. But when I play other types of music, you know, I use that pretty frequently. That's a great instrument to play Celtic tunes on, and even some of the Brazilian stuff that I like to play now and then.
How about some more questions, guys? I know we came up with some this morning, so. Yes, Sophia.
How is the mandolin different from other instruments?
It's better.
That answers that.
It's the instrument of the new millennium. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bum you out with that. But no, how is it different? It is kind of unique, you know, in that it's violin-like, but it's not a violin. It's guitar-like. You play it with a pick and it has frets, but it doesn't sound like a guitar, so it's kind of unique. You know, it's got a pretty unique sound to it. You can play virtually any type of music on it and sound credible doing it. You know, I play classical music, I play Brazilian choro, Celtic stuff, bluegrass. You know, every now and then going back to my youth and revisiting some of my rock and roll roots, you know. But you can play it in just about any kind of music that you can imagine and you know, have it sound authentic. So, you know, I don't know that you could necessarily perform all those different types of music with some of the other instruments that are out there, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I guess if you get to a certain level, that 10,000 hour level that everybody talks about, you know, you can make anything do anything you want, you know.
It's funny, I'm sitting here, anytime I try to play the mandolin, I feel like the frets are so close together I can't play anything. And I try to play a bass, and I feel like it's so far apart and big I can't. So I guess that's why I'm stuck here
In the middle.
You know,
Well,
but
it's funny because I mentioned I started playing guitar, and now I pick a guitar up and I try to play it. It feels like my fingers are lost on some gigantic football field. It's like, how did I ever play this thing? So,
yeah,
it's all what you get used to.
yeah, exactly. Anything else? Yeah, so
How do you travel with the bass?
It's a pain. I pick it up and put it on my shoulder and just walk. That's generally how. It's not that heavy. It's an awkward shape. I've not done much in the way of performing far away. When I do, fortunately, it's been a car. I mean, it's preferable to have a van, or I have a hatchback, and it's just big enough to put it down. Most cars, if you put the passenger seat down, you can't have it. If it's just me and you in the car, I put you in the back seat. Because the front passenger seat, you put the bass in the seat, you put the front seat down, the neck sticks through. And I've seen bassists talking, and one of the things, if you're going to buy a new car, oh, well, what kind of car will my bass fit in? Or it'll work, because it can really matter. I know professionally it's very difficult. A lot of bassists rent basses, which if they're flying and they don't have a flight, you can buy a flight case, it costs you a couple $1,000. Pay the airline their fee, and you can bring it on a plane. It looks like a gigantic mandolin case. I think that does the trick. It's difficult. In the early days, I know in the bluegrass world, they used to tie the bass on top of the car. Literally, you see pictures, and they would somehow strap it down. I don't know how they did it, and I mean, this bass is from the early 50s, so it wouldn't have been a bass much different than this, and I guess they got away with it. I think they had no other choice. They also make electric basses that are designed to look like an upright bass and supposedly play like one, so they won't have the big hips. It's just a stick with a pickup in some way, and I know guys do that. If you get into you probably don't know from this world, but some people say it's not authentic, you don't get the right sound, and people take their music seriously. The tone you get from your instrument is very important. Sort of part of the way you express yourself. So to just say, oh, it's more convenient to have that. Well, you may not get the same tone, and the action may not be the same. And people experiment, spend many hours trying to get just the right sound, particularly for a bass. I'm sure, actually, all the instruments. But I know as a bass player, that's a big part of what I try to do.
yes.
How do you use the bow?
I came from work and I meant to grab a bow and I didn't. And I saw that question. And the bass, as far as I know, for centuries it was bowed. I think the playing, I think it's called pizzicato. It's Italian word with your finger. It's a bow. There's different ways to hold it, and I wish I brought it. It gets a very deep, beautiful tone if you're any good at it. And I do play with the bow at home. There's not much call for it in most of the music I play, but it's just a big bow, and just like any other instrument, really.
Do you play any other types of music?
Other than bluegrass? Yeah, I do. I mean, I play guitar, but on the bass, I like to listen to, everyone has their preference, and most of the things I listen to is, it's not just bluegrass, but it's sort of traditional American music, usually from the 50s or 40s, and during that time period, a lot of country music. Bluegrass was just one small type, and there'd be bands, and all this blues music. There's a lot of crossover there. So I wanted to do this. I don't want to, but like the bass, I saw a little bit of a clip of another guy who came in here with a bass, and maybe had some more than one. And you see the guy going like this. It seems a little boring, right? But really, a lot of, well, you can double that up. And instead of, they call it walking the bass, so instead of going 1, you can play 4, no. And it's a busier sound. It's used in a lot of modern forms of jazz, or all forms of jazz, but you can do that in a bluegrass context as well. And it works in the right setting. So I don't know if that answers your question as to what other kind of music I play, but I like to mix it up.
Yes, Izzy.
Why did you choose bluegrass?
I don't know, I chose it, I fell into it. I had a girlfriend from North Carolina. My wife says that she'll kill me. And her dad was a big bluegrass guy. So I played a little guitar, and I went down, I spent a lot of time in North Carolina for many years. And him and all his friends played, and so I just kind of picked it up so I could get in on that.
And how about you, Wayne, as far
For
as?
me, it was really that fiddle playing friend of mine that kind of got me to pay attention. I had heard it all my life. My father and his whole side of the family is from Kentucky, so we used to go down there as kids, and you'd turn the radio on and get WSM from the Grand Ole Opry, and they'd be playing bluegrass. Now, interestingly, my father, when WSM would come on, could not turn the radio off fast enough. He hated bluegrass. So wherever he is now, I'm sure he's shaking his head thinking, where did we go wrong in raising this guy? But,
Yes, is that Talia?
So can you only practice with like your right hand, or could you do it with your left hand too?
You can't really, I mean, I guess you could. Actually, I'm trying to think. No, because you need, I mean, if you're fretting the instrument, you really need to do that, unless you're some kind of crazy innovator.
So would it be a lot
I mean, you
harder
need to,
for like a left-handed person to learn to play?
Can you just go on the other side?
yeah, I guess you
Yeah,
could.
you need to switch
know,
the strings up.
that happens with guitars. I think the best thing to do, are you left-handed?
No.
Okay, well, if you are, or any of your friends are, I would recommend just learning to play. There's no reason that you know, a right-handed person has to use the right hand on any of the instruments. It's really what you're used to. And the reason I say that is because if you have to find an instrument built for someone who's left-handed, which they'll do, a maker will make one, a guitar, and it's going to be a lot harder to find, it's going to be more expensive. And it's just, if you're into it, you're going to try to pick up an instrument, and you're not going to have the selection and ability to find what you want. So I play, yeah, the right hand down here, but I guess you could, and you might have to adjust the bridge. I don't see, well, the pegs, I don't know about the pegs. You'd have to ask someone who makes basses, but it could be done.
What would happen if you used a violin bow on bass?
If you were any good, you probably could get a decent tone, but it's thinner. The amount of hair that goes across the strings is going to affect the tone you have, and it's also longer, so the bass is a deeper tone, so you want to get a longer draw, I mean, depending on what you're doing, and the more surface area that comes in contact with the string is going to affect the tone. Now that's true with even playing with your hand. If I go like this, you get a little thin tone, right? So I try to get a lot of meat on that. I try to turn my finger, and you know, it may be subtle, but you really get it. And that's the same with a pick too. Depending on how you strike the pick is really a big part of your sound.
Does it hurt your fingers?
Yes. I mean, if you play for extended periods of time and you're not in shape, the bass, I think, is fair to say the most physical instrument of the bluegrass variety. The sheer physicality of it is half the battle, and particularly when you're learning. You know, you play for 12 minutes, you feel like you're going to get a blister. You will get a blister on your finger. So you actually build up calluses, and your left hand, the reaches. So that comes with, again, it's like learning to ride a bike. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. If I don't play for a while, and then I go to a jam and I play for 2-3 hours, or even a gig, especially if I'm not amplified well and I have to play extra loud, I will develop blisters. But you know, the more you do it, you learn to be efficient with your motion, so you're not working harder than you have to, and that helps you play better and for longer periods of time.
Any other questions? Skylar?
You said before that all the bass players that you know are always very mellow people. First of all, why did you choose this instrument, and how mellow are you?
Oh, I didn't, well, it depends who you ask, the second question. But, well,
You sleepwalking now?
chose it. I think people would say that, because when you play the bass, for the most part, you're not the star of the show. Because Mandolin's going to play his lead. You know, the fiddle, the bass is in the back of the rhythm section, and it's the bottom. But to me, in a bluegrass band, it's all about the rhythm. And the foundation of a group is really in the guitar. You know, people overlook this, but the rhythm guitar is really going to affect the sound of a group almost more than anything. And that in conjunction with the bass. And no disrespect to the mandolin, but the mandolins, we're going to do, I'll do a demonstration with Wayne here because it'll show you. But to me, I enjoy so the bass is not the star, you're in the back, and you have to have a personality where you're not looking for the limelight. I can play gig after gig. I walk up to the bar after the show to get my one free drink, and they say, oh, you're in the band? I mean, hey, you're in the back, nobody knows you, they don't know who you are, and I'm okay with that. I mean, to me, it's all about the collective sound of the group. Now, that said, there are many forms of music, and even within bluegrass, there are many times where the bass can, you know, take more of a spotlight position. And one of the things I wanted to demonstrate today, which a lot of guys in bluegrass won't do, but I think just to promote the bass, because it's a little more exciting, is a slap bass. And I'm not an expert slap basser, but I do it from time to time, and there's different ways to do it. But instead of just going, plucking a string, you basically, you can go. So that's almost, the string bounces back and makes a snap. So then you got one, and then you can double that up. If I almost hit the bass, then you can double it up again. Where you go. And that's almost a double. And then you can sort of change up the beats. And you wouldn't do this in any bluegrass song for any extended amount of time, but it's the kind of thing I mess around with in my living room from time to time. And so say you want to do like a rumba beat, you go. It's the kind of thing, you can take that and go, and there are guys who get real fancy with that and more of a rockabilly thing, and it's pretty exciting bass playing, depending on your taste.
So how do you approach playing bluegrass as far as you have a violin, guitar, you know, banjo, bass, and then there's mandolin. What is the role of the mandolin?
The mandolin is really kind of like the snare drum, you know, in most other types of music. Its function when you're playing rhythm is to fill in that backbeat. So if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, on a mandolin, you're not so much worried about playing on those beats as in between them. Maybe we can give you an
Let's
example.
just lay out for 1 second.
An A
chord. So what I'll do is I'm going to go boom, boom, boom. And the whole thing is boom, chick, and that's what gives it the lift. Wayne's instrument is going to give it the swing because he's going to do that chick, and that propels the music forward.
I'm just going to hit the chord and immediately release the tension in my fingers so that it almost sounds percussive. Right.
So I'm going like this. Hear that? It's the push and pull it. And a good band, the mandolin and the bass are locked in. And I'm always listening for that chick. And once that's locked in, you can change it a little bit because the foundation's there. But that's the sound right there.
That's it.
And watch, I'll goose it up with my right hand. I wouldn't do this in a live setting, but.
That's really what kind of defines that bluegrass sound, and the guy that, you know, kind of cooked up this formula is a guy that I'm sure you've heard mentioned by now, Bill Monroe. Bill was a mandolin player, yet further proof that the mandolin is the king of all instruments. And Bill really kind of, you know, came up with this notion of, you know, playing a chord and immediately kind of muting it so that you get that snare drum effect. Now the guitar player kind of sits in between, and he fills, you know, he's kind of playing the chords more on the beat and playing some little bass runs, you know, on his lower strings that kind of complement what the bass player is doing, right? And so you really, between the three instruments, you really have, ideally, a great rhythm section that kind of really fills the gaps nicely between the very low sounds and kind of the more mid to upper range sounds without stepping on each other.
Cool. Well, should we play another one? What do you think? All right.
Maybe a Bill Monroe tune. No Danger Feet. Is that okay? So this is a tune written by the father of bluegrass music, Bill Monroe.
Are they in unison each string?
Yeah, right. So you can tell when one's out. As was the case on that last tune, and for which I profoundly apologize.
Could you guys tell? No. Only he could tell. Right? We, you know, a lot of times when you notice, you know, the audience does not.
That's what people tell me.
You have a question on that? Yeah.
Do you guys know how to play tremolo, and like, is it hard for you?
Yeah, tremolo is kind of somewhat unique to the mandolin. Guitar players do it. Django did it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not really that difficult. I mean, you just kind of start. I'm a big believer in practicing with a metronome, and so I'll just set the metronome at a very comfortable pace, and I'll just start with quarter notes, just kind of. And then when you get bored with that, I double it up. Right, and then I'll double it up again. And I'll keep, you know, I'll keep doing that until I kind of get this thing going. And that's what's referred to as a tremolo. Now, you've heard this in probably Italian music, and but it's a big part of bluegrass too. This kind of tremolo type of effect. So it's really, just start slow and just keep doubling it up until you can do that, for hours on end, and then you can be a bluegrass player. See how easy it is?
Wow, yeah, you make it look easy. We had talked this morning about, remember the 10,000 hours, right? We're reading Outliers. Anybody want to ask about that, or are you going to make me? You're going to make me, huh? Well, the whole thing about 10,000 hours. My question is, was there a time where you feel like you put in the work, or you remember both of you guys, what you're playing sort of jump to another level by putting in the time? Can you markate that in your development as a musician, or do you agree that it's sort of that 10,000 hours, kind of
It makes sense.
philosophy?
It makes total sense. And the more you practice, and the more you play, and the more you give to your instrument, the more you'll get back from it. My development, I think, has kind of been, ascension and then a plateau, and then ascension and a plateau, and so on. I've been really fortunate to study with some really great teachers, and they certainly helped me to focus my attention and focus my practice so that, as I put that time in, I was able to kind of reap the rewards from doing it. But yeah, the more, the thing to remember though is 10,000 hours or not, music is like this never-ending path. The more you learn and the better you get, the more you realize that there's at least that much more to learn, and at least that much farther to go to get as good as you want to get. And then when you get there, it's just kind of lather, rinse, repeat. You never, ever, ever outgrow music. And that's one of the wonderful things about it. Other things that you can do in life, I think you kind of eventually reach something of a destination. Music, regardless of the instrument that you play, is just something that can, really make you a happy person for every day that you live on the planet.
Wayne, I noticed in some information you had forwarded to Lynn, a number of rock musicians who have incorporated mandolin into their drummers. And I think you mentioned Led Zeppelin, I forget who else.
Yeah.
Could you mention some of those?
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones both play mandolin. And in fact, John Paul Jones is a very active record producer now, producing bluegrass records and working with bluegrass musicians. He's just taken a love of the music and the people that play it, and mandolin happens to be his instrument of choice.
Well, you want to just...
Paul McCartney plays mandolin as well.
Is that Rod Stewart tune?
Rod Stewart.
Yeah, right?
I mean, there's all kinds of appearances, surfacings of the mandolin in rock music. I'm too old to play it, but it's out
in the
there.
privacy of your own home.
Yes.
But nobody plays stand-up bass in rock music, do they?
Well, it's an amplification issue. I'm sure somebody does, but this instrument, the reason they invented the electric bass is because if it gets too loud, you really can't hear it, and they can make electric violins and electric mandolins and electric guitars and electric basses, but when you try to play this too loud, you just can't hear yourself, and it really doesn't cut. So I think that's the reason. You don't get the sustain with an electric instrument. You hit a note, you turn the amp up to 10, and you can hear it halfway across the river. Acoustic bass won't give you that sound. It's a beautiful tone, but it's not the volume.
Well, I really want to thank you guys for coming. I think if we just end with another tune,
Sure.
and if there's no more questions from anybody else.
I'd just like to make a plug to the youth. I don't get asked to speak to the youth about music, really ever, but if you want to learn an instrument, you gotta love it, because it's really hard at first. You can make your arm, no matter what instrument, you really gotta be willing to put in the time. But if you're willing to do that, especially at a young age, it can really open doors for you. I've gotten jobs, you meet all kinds of people you'd never meet, you go to places you'd never go. Look at me, I'm standing in the Poughkeepsie Day School here. You know, it really opens up a lot of doors, and it's a lot of fun, and it can be profitable. I mean, that's a hard road to hoe, but it really, it's a worthwhile thing to do in a lot of reasons, but you gotta want to do it. If someone gives you, you know, a cello and says you gotta learn this, and you feel like it's a struggle and a pain, it's got to be fun, and but any instrument at first is going to be hard. So I just say you stick with it, and you get past the painful part of it, you'll be glad you did.
It starts to become really fun, and I agree with everything he just said. Music has taken me places I never could have imagined going on my own, and given me the opportunity to meet people that I never would have met otherwise. It's really a gift, and you know, I'd encourage everyone in this room to find some instrument. It may not be mandolin or bass or guitar, it may be piano or trumpet or God forbid tuba, but you know, whatever that is, whatever sound kind of speaks to you, you know, put the time in, and as Dave says, once you get past the uncomfortable bumps of beginning to learn the thing, you know, it's a gift that will reward you for every day of your life. It's really wonderful. And by the way, it can be profitable as a bluegrass musician. You can expect an income in the tens of dollars typically.
All right. So what are we going to play here?
This is a tune that actually comes from our good neighbors to the north up in Canada. This is called St. Anne's Reel, but it's played pretty frequently in you know, in bluegrass jams. So yeah, thanks. Great questions, and it's been fun playing for you. Okay, 1, 2.
Before we break, I wanted to again thank Wayne and David for coming in today. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. I want to thank Aaron. You've done a great, fabulous job of stepping in and organizing things and playing along. And so I also wanted to thank thanks to behind-the-scenes people, Lynn Lipton and Mike Foley, for bringing this idea to us last year. Partnership that we've had with the Hudson Valley Bluegrass Association, and it's really been outstanding. So I want to thank everybody for participating. Next week, I'm going to put a plug in for our performance next week. So we've been through all 5 of the major bluegrass instruments. You guys have asked some wonderful questions, and I think you've learned a lot about it. Not obscure to most people, but I think obscure to many teenagers, this idea of bluegrass music. It's from a different period of time, it's from a different part of the country. You know, you guys didn't grow up listening to this, and I think you know a whole lot about a form of music that gives you a window into a different part of our country, a different period of time as well. And you're more educated because of it. And you guys, I know, are going to appreciate the professional band that's coming in next week, a Special Consensus. They're touring in Europe now. Maybe they're back in the States this week, but they've been touring in Europe this fall. They're going to be here at the school. They're going to do some workshops with you guys right around the lunchtime hour, I guess. Aaron and Trace, you guys are working on some songwriting stuff before then. And Jake, as well. And you know, so there's also more foundation for what's going to be coming next week. You guys are working with the band, and there's going to be a free concert during the school day for everybody to listen to. And then in the evening, there's a special performance that people from the public are going to come to.
I know that several of you are budding musicians and are thinking about it and so on. We have jam sessions, Bluegrass Association. We have jam sessions every second and fourth Wednesday down at Pirate Canoe Club, and we frequently have kids show up and play. And some of them play better than the adults, and some don't. And I feel really comfortable playing there because I'm beginning bluegrass banjo, but I don't feel unwelcome because I'm beginning. They're very tolerant for mistakes. So, it's great to play with other people. It's really hard to stay with an instrument playing only by yourself in your room. But if you play with others and learn from them and bounce off of them, it helps build up your enthusiasm. So I'd certainly encourage you to plan in the back of your mind if you're taking up any sort of a bluegrass instrument, guitar, banjo, fiddle, any of the instruments you've heard. You can locate us. You can go Google Hudson Valley Bluegrass Association, and that steers you to Lynn, who could fill you in on the information. But anybody is welcome to come and join us. Okay, so let's give them another round of applause for coming up.